Okay, I'm just going to, this is little Tiger's first baby, who's called Dot, and she's 3 years old. Last year as a 2-year-old, we put tack on and just did a couple of weeks with her, just very gentle, but just like preschool training, you know, just breaking her into it very gently about the facts of life and that people sit on your back. And we've just started again this year, now they're now 3-year-olds. So we're just doing it really, really gently, and they've had the tack on for the first time today after after about 6 months, and she's been absolutely brilliant. So what I'm just doing now, really quietly and gently, is I put the lead rope through a ring tie here, as you can see, without the string. I'm not tying her, I'm just going to hold it. So if she pulls back, I can be like, I've got more control, but if she was to panic, I can just let go and not scare her. So it's just an easier way of anchoring her slightly. And I'm just literally, always have somebody with you when you do this, and ideally wear a hat, guys. I'm just doing this really quickly without a hat so you can just see. And basically, I'll just bang on the saddle like this, and you can see her ears, they're really relaxed. She's not too worried about, you know, she's looking at me, but she's not panicking. You know, she's more interested in what's going on around her. And then I'll just like move the saddle, again just looking at her eye and ear the whole time. And then just, you know, just lift my weight, just as she feels the weight on her back, you know, and the pull on the girth, and the whole experience of having somebody on you is about weight being on you, the tack moving. And you can see she's completely and utterly, doesn't give 2 hoots, which is great. And we'll just do this for a couple of days just to make sure that she's fine. Then we'll get her out and lunge her and long rein her, etc. before hopefully getting on her properly in sort of a week or so. She was absolutely fantastic to do the first time around, and I was on her within sort of 10 days, and she never bucked. Or you really have to tailor it to individual horses. You know, some are really naughty, but she absolutely took to it like a duck to water. So yeah, hopefully won't take much of my time to get her back to where she was before. And like I said, I think it's far better to do short, small stints like this as 2-year-old, 3-year-old, and then 4-year-old you can crack on, and suddenly getting them out of the field when they're nearly 4 and breaking it to them that their whole world that they've loved for the last 3.5 years has just come crashing down around them, and that they're not herd animals. They actually have to sort of go to school and have their head tied down and have bits on, etc. So I think this way it's just nicer and easier for us as well to sort of be able to manage horses when they're a bit weaker and a bit smaller. It's far easier just to sort of nip any bad habits in the bud before they get big and unruly. This is Pi, who was basically born about around the same sort of time, sort of a couple of weeks difference in the birth time. They've been brought up exactly the same, handled the same, and this one's a little trollop. And she wasn't scared at all when we broke them in as 2-year-olds last year, but she had a lot of opinions, and she didn't see why she should do as she was told at all. And again, it was really nice to have her as a weak 2-year-old, because when she decided to throw herself on the floor, you know, it was very sort of half-hearted, and she got tired quickly without me having to sort of, you know, sort of work her into the ground, and it was much easier just to get topside of her. So I'm going to run you a bit through the tack and stuff. Basically, I use racing tack on all my babies. They're my saddles, and purely because, as you can see, they're absolutely, there's nothing to them, and if a horse does do something stupid like fall over, they haven't killed your best saddle. And also they're terribly light, and I've had horses go over and they haven't broken the trees because they don't really have one. So, like I said, it's just personal preference, and also for me laying over, these are far comfier to lay over the babies in the beginning. Then biffing wise, I'll pull this off for you. To start with, I don't use any noseband because I don't like to strap my mouth shut. I have a real simple little headpiece like this, which you should be able to get from most saddlers, because you can just pull them over the head collars. And then a braking bit. All the horses will start with nice braking bits. You know, it's just good for them to mouth on the key so that they've sort of got something to play with in their mouth and hopefully get them to accept it much quicker. I've kept horses in these until they've been competing. I had one horse that did 4 pre-novices in a braking bit because he was just much happier in it. So, hi Pi. See, she loves me for it. So yeah, I think it's quite important to, and horses always have cheats on your bits because because that stops it from being pulled through. You know, if you're trying to turn on the long reins or when you're being ridden or when you're riding them, they can't pull this through. Or if I had a normal one, you know, you see it competing a lot. You know, somebody loses their steering a bit and ends up pulling the bit through. So ideally starting with something like this, nice cheeks and a key on. If the horse, she's quite mouthy, I'll show you when I put it, hopefully she'll do it when I put it in. She's quite gobby, what you call gobby. Go. So straight away she's a bit like, get it out, get it out. But having the key there stops her as well, because it lies quite down on the tongue. It stops her from drawing her tongue back as far and getting it over, or helps to stop her getting it over the bit. If she really wanted to, it wouldn't stop it completely, but it does help prevent it. And again, just because she's quite gobby and she doesn't like it, having that key there will help her play with it and accept it a bit quicker. So yeah, so basically, like I said, with the cheeks, you know, you can pull it away and you're not going to, you saw then straight away, if I pulled on the right hand side, you know, it didn't pull through and she just moved her head round nicely to the left, and if I hadn't have got there, it would have been very easy for it just to slip through. But that's sort of my basic tack for breaking. Tend to start with no stirrup irons just because get some used to it without one extra thing to be worried about. But I always have obviously good quality girth, make sure your stitching's good. Last thing I want to do is fall off because your girth's broken. And which I haven't got on now, but I will have, I always have a neck strap, which is normally just a stirrup, old stirrup leather around the neck, which I can just hold on to and keep my hands down. And also, if you've got something that's quite mouthy, it's quite nice to have a neck strap, because if you want to slow them down, you can just pull on your neck strap, as well as taking a gentle pull on the mouth, and just say wool, so you're not sort of hanging on their mouth if they're unsure about the bit. So, but again, this is all personal preference. There are more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak. So these are what I do, really. I just want to talk really quickly about horses being mouthy and gobby. I think it's quite important for the first couple of months, probably, not to strap them down, to let them to go forwards. What is quite interesting, if I show you here, you can see she's incredibly toothy. She's got a great big lump here, which are two teeth coming through, which is one of the reasons we wouldn't strap her mouth shut yet, because she's obviously got a lot going on in there and it would be unfair. But for me, once they've had a couple of months and they're used to the bit, and the key, absolute key thing here is going forwards. If they're gobby and they're not going forwards, you cannot shut their mouth up, because you'll just make them go even backwards, even more, you know, reverse. So once they've had the bit on for, you know, probably 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and they're going forwards and they're taking me forwards and they're picking up the bit, and they're, even though they're gobby, they're happy to accept the bit, then I would start doing nose bands up. But I would do it gently. I would do cavesson, you know, hold tighter every day. If you've got to be fair, I think you can just suddenly strap their mouth shut. And maybe, if you're going to strap their mouth shut, go to a plastic bit. So you sort of play it, so it's a bit swings and roundabouts. So you take the pressure of the bit off a little bit and put a bit more pressure on with the nose band. You don't sort of go in all, you know, heavy-handed and just go, unlucky, crank everything up, you know, and make them throw their toys out. But it is really important just to make sure, especially with the babies, that there's nothing going on teeth-wise, because like I said, you can see this massive great big lump here, there's a tooth coming through, and if I was to shut her mouth up with that, she'd have full rights to tell me to bugger off.